Okay, as promised, here it is. This is my 100% in-depth review on Zack Snyder's Justice League. Now I want to start off by saying that I was so excited for this movie to come out. It's been one of my most highly anticipated superhero movies of this year and even next year. I've been waiting for this one to come out for a long time. As time grew closer to the release, I was getting more and more hyped every single day. I also want to preface this with, I am not a Batman fan and I am not a Superman fan. They're two of my least favourite superheroes. But I watched the movie earlier, I've taken a lot of notes, and I'm going to go into depth on what I thought about every aspect of the movie. I'll go through the good, the average, and then the bad. And at the end I'll give you a final rating on a lot of different categories. I'm not here to waste your time, I'm here to review the movie, so we're going to jump straight into it. Okay, so starting off with the good, and there's a lot of it in this movie. First off, and this might be the main thing for me, the thing I picked up on most, the thing that stood out to me most throughout the whole film, was the sound design. The music, the sound effects, the voices, everything like that blew me away. Wonder Woman's theme especially, her actual theme tune and the Amazon theme every time the Amazons showed up. It literally just hit so different every single time. Every single time I saw them, I was like, oh my god, like it made me so hyped for the scene that was about to come. The vibrations in the voices, Darkseid and Steppenwolf especially, the voices were so powerful and you could literally feel it every time they spoke. The music choice for different shots, for example, Flash's introduction, Flash when they were going back in time, Superman when he resurrected and flew up to the sky, all three of them, just all the music choices were perfect. And another thing which is not picked up on much, but the noise in the slow-mo scenes was perfect too. The slow-mo noise matched the scenes perfectly. Next point, I want to go on to the camera shots. Now the camera shots used in this were great. We're so used to seeing the same kind of shots in like every movie these days, and this one kind of really threw a curveball. There were some like over the top shots, some really high angle, low angles, some different things that you wouldn't normally see. Some completely parallel shots too, which were great. The colour correction was great. I'd like to especially point out, I remember the Wonder Woman in London scenes, the colour correction in these scenes was great. Of course, how can I not mention the slow motion scenes? Now the slow motion scenes were, they actually blew me away. The slow motion scenes were unbelievable. I can't even think of better words for it. The slow motion scenes were some of the best I have seen in movies, in any comic book movie of recent years at all. The colours in the scenes, the lightning especially in the Flash scenes, the characters' slow motion when they react to the world around them, the movements in the Flash scene, I did point out in my review, the way that he taps his feet so lightly on the ground is such great attention to detail, because if he was running that speed normally, he would be smashing the ground. Same way when he saves Iris, he touches her so gently. And it's just, I love that because it's such a plot hole in any speedster that if they're moving at whatever speed they're moving at where time is basically stopped and they touch someone like this, that would kill them, that would knock them, like that would hurt. The attention to detail in the slow motion scenes was perfect for me. Next I want to talk about the flashback sequence, the flashback war sequence. Things I loved about this, well basically all of it. It was actually one of my favourite scenes in the whole movie and I can't really fault it at all. The gods were awesome, so Zeus, the Atlanteans were awesome. The lantern was my favourite part by far. We saw the lantern kind of have a short little one-on-one with Darkseid and you saw the ring fly off. That was super exciting. And then it caught me so off guard when the human smacked Darkseid in the shoulder. The human just about took him out. He had to get dragged back into the ship. I loved that part and to see the blood too. Obviously, with more Marvel stuff coming out, and I am more of a Marvel fan, I'll admit it, I do like DC, but I am more of a Marvel fan. I'm not used to this stuff because it's a Disney-owned company. It's nice to see a bit of gore, a bit of brutal fighting for once in these movies. I really, really enjoyed that part. Now, I already mentioned it, I loved the Flash intro. You had like the music, the light touching feet like I already mentioned, the ground breaking underneath his feet, and just, yeah, the attention to detail in that scene. I'm not going to talk about it too much, I've already said a lot. That scene was awesome. Another scene that was great and that was very needed to make this film stand out from the other one was the sort of little cyborg training montage we had. You saw him like learning how to fly, learning how to use his powers. You saw the tape explaining all these things to him that's going on in his body. That we needed as a viewer a lot because Cyborg was missing so much backstory in the other movie that we just had no idea what was going on in the slightest. I think fleshing out his character was perfect for him and it really made me like him as a character. In the other one I really didn't care about him because he was just kind of like, whatever. in this movie he was actually one of my favourite characters. Now, moving on to the mid-fight with Steppenwolf, the one where they're at the bridge and he's got Cyrus held hostage. I loved this fight so much. It was the first time we've seen of everyone in their suit together in this movie. They had great teamwork, they all knew their roles, they linked up perfectly, and it also sort of brought Aquaman into the loop. Obviously we knew this from the other film, but I think the way they done it in this one, the sequences were slightly different. It worked a lot better and showed them working as a team a lot more than before. In the old movie it was kind of like they were all doing their individual thing in the same space. This one was actually like the Justice League fighting together. Speaking of this scene, I also just want to say that Steppenwolf's redesign was unbelievable. The armour, the more monstrous look, I love that so much. Now I've already said this and I have touched on this a lot already, so again I'm not going to talk about it too much, but the fact that Cyborg has become a main character, I will talk about again. It was one of the main points for me in this movie. This completely changed the whole movie for me. They gave him so many more speaking points, which is great because he is an amazing character. He was focused on a lot more and given a lot more importance in the film. Moving on though, we have the epic final fight. So many things were perfect about this and I did not expect it to be. I've already said I'm not a fan of Batman, I'm not a fan of Superman, and this movie actually changed my opinion on them. Batman was badass, which if you know me, you'll never catch me saying that again. Superman was even more badass, which you'll never catch me saying that again. The link up between all the characters when they were tossing Steppenwolf around blew my mind. They all had individual roles which all played part of the bigger fight. They were all crucial to the fight, which is like the best part. Without any of the members, that thing wouldn't have worked. The whole plan would have fell apart. I love the fact that they make everyone important. That's a big thing for me in these team-up movies. Also in the final fight, the kill sequence. The link up in the kill sequence was amazing. We have obviously Aquaman first of all, skewers him right through the stomach and lifts him up like a beast. That scene was awesome. Superman hitting him with a Hail Mary punch back into the portal. In mid-air, we have the GOAT Wonder Woman just taking his head clean off. Like I said earlier with the DC and you know, not Disney, sorry, not being able to show the brutal stuff. I love to see the decapitation, and the fact that it fell right in front of Darkseid was the biggest middle finger to this asshole that Earth could not be messed with, and I thought that was such a cool scene. I do love more brutal and gory scenes in films. I wish Marvel would do it more, but of course I understand why they can't. But that scene was that was the best scene in the movie, in my opinion. Speaking of that though, Darkseid. The graphics for him were unbelievable. His eyes were just so terrifying. His voice, I've already spoke about this as well, but so powerful. He looked scary. That's what a villain should look like. That's what happens when you take Thanos and just pump him with steroids and put LEDs in his eyeballs. I would have loved to have had a Justice League 2 where Darkseid is the main villain, but I also don't know how they would defeat him. Now moving on, we have the nightmare sequences that were in the epilogue of the film at the end. These were pretty cool. I know it didn't really make sense in the movie, but they were just being added in as just an extra. It got us to look at Deathstroke again, which is always cool. I like Deathstroke, he's a great villain, definitely deserves more screen time. It's a shame that it's not canon. We got Jared Leto's not new, but redesigned Joker, which was so unimaginably, infinitely better than the Suicide Squad one. Simple as that, it was so much better. The long hair, the makeup, the way he spoke, the way he acted. No forehead tattoo, bro. I would genuinely have loved to have seen a Batman and Joker film with Jared Leto's Joker, but this version, I think he killed it. He had very little screen time, but I enjoyed every part that he was on screen. Not to mention the Martian Manhunter. Martian Manhunter is a great character, and the little cameo we had in the middle, but more so at the end, was awesome. The end scene where Martian Manhunter comes down and says he's joining the fight got me super hyped. Even though it's not canon, I'd love to see him come back in the future and join the Justice League. Now, this is actually my biggest good point of the whole, and it's not something that was in the movie, it's something that wasn't in the movie. The random weird Russian family that just were unexplained last time. I'm so glad they weren't in the movie. Who were they? Who cares? I'm so glad that that random ass family in the random house in the middle of the random part of Russia just weren't in the movie. Simple as that. They didn't need to be there. Very happy. Now I'm going to move on to the more average things in the movie, and there wasn't as many as the good things. The good definitely outweighs everything else, but there was a few things I was a bit like, it could have been a little bit better. First off, I was talking about the Steppenwolf redesign. I love the armour, like I said, and the head and the new face and the more monstrous look, but the only thing I thought was a bit sketchy, a bit dodgy was the blue eyes. They were a little bit like, he didn't really need them. I felt like he was doing good without them. And when he did have the blue eyes, it did look a little bit like they literally just lit his eyes up. Like, it could have been done a little bit better in my opinion. Now another thing, the Superman fight, the part where he gets resurrected and he fights the Justice League on his old statue. I might be being super picky here, but I would have liked to have seen maybe just some different stuff, some like a different little fight sequence. I know some of it was slightly different, but for the most part it was the same. That was my favourite part of the old movie, so I'm not mad that it was the same, but as my favourite part, if they added a little bit extra, I would have loved that. Now we move on to Cyrus's death, Cyborg's dad's death, and it was emotional, yes. It was impactful, yes. It was relevant and important, yes. I think it was just rushed a little bit. It didn't really explain why he was doing it until after. If we knew beforehand, it would have made it a lot more hard-hitting, in my opinion. It was kind of just like there, and then it wasn't there. Like, he just disappeared like that. It didn't build up to it much. It just kind of happened out of nowhere. I would have just liked a little bit of build up to that death more, in my opinion. Now, the bit at the end where Flash rewrites time with the Speed Force. The music was unbelievable. I cannot fault the music, I've already said that. But I feel like we did need a little bit more explanation for this. I knew what was going on, I'm sure most people did, but it would have just been nicer if they explained more why this was happening. Again, I'll go back to the epilogue here, and there was a few things that were good, but could have been better in my opinion. The Lex Luthor thing, I know it was in the other movie, but the whole, like, yacht thing, they could have just left it out, honestly. I just don't see the point when it's not canon. And the fact that, like, they don't explain how he gets out or why he's on the ship or what his interior motive is. Like, I know it's meant to set up something bigger, but for the Snyder Cut, they could have just left that part out. One thing I will say though, I've already said this, but the Joker part and Martian Manhunter was epic. Now I'll go back to slow-mo again. I have praised the slow-mo throughout this whole video, but the one thing I will not praise it for is how much there was. There may have been a little bit too much slow-mo. Now I'm not going to say it's a bad thing, I loved all of it, but I think in the general scheme of things there was a lot of slow motion scenes and maybe took it away from the ones that were slightly better. I think I'm being really picky here, but they may have just overused it a little bit. Now on to the bad parts, and I only have two main points for this. There was not many bad things in this movie, which majorly surprised me and I'm very happy with. The first one was the Darkseid graphics. Now I've already said they were good, but I mean the other kind. The time when Steppenwolf would like summon them and they were all like the molten, metally, you know, like that kind of form. It just didn't sit right. They were too shiny, it didn't really seem finished, it seemed a bit rushed. I feel like the graphics could have been done a little bit better on that part. And then the last thing was there was a few shots throughout the movie where the green screen was questionable. You could just tell it had been rushed in last minute. They weren't really where they should have been, and it was just like a character slapped on top of a scene. The main one I can remember was at the end, Wonder Woman, or Diana, sorry. That one just, I was just like, oh god, there's such obvious green screen. That's the only bad points I have though. Now we're moving on to, this is the final ranking for everything. I'm going to go through the categories and tell you what I thought of each one. I definitely thought this movie was a lot better than the last one, easily, like at least 20 times better. Like, I didn't like the last one at all. I found it hard to watch. This one I've already watched it twice. I would give this story a 7.5 out of 10, only because we already know the story, it's nothing really new, there's just a few extra points in there. I'll give it, before I would have given it like a 3, I'll give it a 7.5 for the Cyborg backstory and the Flash stuff. Oh, and Darkseid of course. Characters, I'm going to go 8.5. Cyborg fleshed out, Flash fleshed out, Wonder Woman was insane as always, Black Suit Superman, Darkseid, Martian Manhunter, I don't have to say any more. Characters get a solid 8.5 from me. Now the camera shots and the general cinematography, that's another 8.5. It wasn't perfect, like I said, the green screen, some little effect, but for the most part, all the shots were beautiful, and I literally sat in awe watching the whole movie. It was great for me as a viewer. The pacing of the movie, on how fast it went through and how well it was set up, I'll give it a 9. The 4 hours did not seem like 4 hours. I was not dreading, but I was kind of apprehensive to sit through a 4-hour movie, if I would get bored or if I'd have to pause in the middle. I actually enjoyed the whole thing. I couldn't wait for the next sequence every single time, the next part. It didn't seem like 4 hours, and that's a good thing. I felt myself excited and just watching, genuinely like enjoying it the whole time. Music, don't have to say anything. I've praised the music enough. It's getting a 10 out of 10. The music could not have been better. The choices, sound effects, all sound design was perfect in my eyes. Simple as that, 10 out of 10. Now, if I compared the two, out of 10, I would have given the old one, if I'm being generous, a 3, probably a 2.5 or a 3. This new one, I'll give it a solid 8.75 out of 10. 8.75 out of 10, I feel like that's fair. It's not perfect by any means, of course, like hardly any films are perfect really, but it's also unbelievable. It was one of my favourite superhero films I've actually watched, and again, coming from someone who hates Batman and Superman, that's a big thing for me. I enjoyed this film a lot more than I thought I would, and I'll definitely be rewatching it in the future. That was my review of the Snyder Cut. Let me know what you thought in the comments, because I'm like so down to have a talk about this movie. I enjoyed it so much and it's kind of the only thing in my head right now. If you also want to talk even more about it with a lot of other people, like over 300, join my Discord server. We have a link in the description. You can join me over there. Apart from that, just subscribe, because the Falcon and the Winter Soldier comes out tomorrow and I'm so excited for it. We're going to be doing reactions, breakdowns, all that kind of stuff every single week for that. Superhero season is just starting, man. This whole year is going to be crazy. You're going to want to subscribe early. Once again, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all next time.